In the opening scene of the film, we see a poacher hiding in his boat from an unidentified creature. He tries to contact the outside world for assistance using his communication device but is unsuccessful. Knowing that there is no help coming, he shoots himself in the head to end his life rather than be killed by the creature. Meanwhile, somewhere in the outside world, a film crew is getting ready to shoot a documentary about a long-lost indigenous Amazonian tribe called Shirashamas. The crew includes director Terry Flores, her cameraman and childhood friend Danny Rich, production manager Denise Kahlberg, Denise's boyfriend and sound engineer Gary Dixon, narrator Warren Westridge, anthropologist Professor Stephen Kale, and boat skipper Mateo. The following day morning, the entire crew meets up at the boatyard to begin their exciting search for the extinct tribe. Kale discusses the route with Mateo and suggests a route which 60 miles shorter than the one Mateo suggested. But Mateo informs him about the danger in that route and hence they decide to take the long way. As they travel farther into the forest, they hear someone pleading for assistance from a stranded boat. The crew helps him and welcomes him to their boat. After boarding the ship, the man introduces himself as Paraguayan snake hunter Paul Cerrone. Soon a small argument occurs between them about whether poaching is legal. Cerrone, however, cleverly switches the subject and asks the crew why they are in the jungle. After knowing about the Shirashama S tribe, Cerrone promises to help them in finding the tribe in exchange for saving his life. Most of the crew members grow uneasy around Cerrone as the journey progresses. Particularly Kale, with whom he constantly has disagreements. A disagreement about Shirashama lore will also arise between the two of them. The crew pays close attention to Kale's suggestions and chooses to follow them. Cerrone is offended by that and requests that they drop him off at the following village so that he can travel on his own, and the crew agrees to that. Later that night, while the crew rested, Denise and Gary go out into the jungle to record some live sound. Far from the boat, the couple decides to get into a romantic moment. As they were kissing, Denise notices the jungle becoming silent. Suddenly, a wild boar runs towards them. Seeing that, they both run to the boat. Before reaching the boat, Cerrone appears in front of them with a gun and shoots the boar. The remaining crew on the boat hears the gunshot and is terrified of it. Kale then tells Mateo to switch on the light so that they can see what exactly happened. Suddenly from the dark, Cerrone and the couple comes with the wild boar they shot. Denise and Gary explain to the remaining crew what happened, and Kale tells everyone to stay inside the boat for the rest of the night. The following day, the crew resume their journey. On their way, the boat's propeller gets caught under the water. Kale takes up the swimsuit and decides to go into the water to free the propeller. Cerrone cautions him about the risks associated with the water, but Kale insists he can handle them and jumps in. Under the water, Kale gets attacked by a poisonous wasp and the allergic reaction swells up his throat and leaves him unconscious. After not seeing Kale for a while, the crew becomes concerned. Unconscious Kale rises to the top of the water as air from the oxygen tank suddenly bursts onto the surface. Gary and Danny jump into the water to rescue Kale and return him to the boat. After bringing him to the boat, Cerrone performs an emergency crocothyrotomy, which helps Kale breathe. However, it is only an emergency procedure, and he needs to be admitted to the hospital right away. The crew makes the decision to end their adventure and head back to the boatyard. Cerrone approaches Terry and suggests her a new route back to the boatyard. According to him, that route would save them around 60 miles. It is the same route he proposed to Kale before and he rejected it. But now, since there is no other better option, Terry is forced to go with the route Cerrone proposed. They arrive at a location where barricades have been placed to block the river as they continue forward. Seeing that Cerrone pulls some dynamite from his bag to blow up the barricade. They can only get to the boatyard quickly via that route. Otherwise, it will take them 2 extra days to travel to the boatyard. Because Terry and the crew are aware of this, they do not intervene to stop Cerrone from blasting the barricade. Later, Cerrone fixes the dynamite all over the barricade with Gary's assistance. While in the water, Gary notices some movement and tells Cerrone about it. Cerrone won't be surprised because he is already aware of what is in the water. They both return back to the boat and destroy the entire barricade. Unknowingly, the crew is falling into Cerrone's trap and helping him achieve his true goal, which is hunting down a giant record-breaking green anaconda he had been tracking. The explosion not only demolishes the barricade but also the anaconda's nest and many baby snakes. Terry asks Cerrone whether he knew about the nest, and Cerrone replies that he was aware of it but had no choice. The crew is frightened by the sheer number of snakes on the boat. Cerrone, however, reassures them that they are just infants and directs them to continue their journey. Additionally, they also lose some of their fuel drums during the shake caused by the explosion, but what is left is still more than enough to get them where they need to go. As they continue on, they come across an old abandoned boat. The same boat where the poacher committed suicide after being attacked by an unknown creature at the beginning of the film. Mateo and Cerrone head over to the boat because Cerrone believes there may be fuel in there, which they can use if there occurs any emergency. But the truth is Cerrone really wants to know what happened to Poacher's boat and he needs to see what is left behind. Danny also joins the group because he believes that recovering something from the abandoned boat will make for compelling footage for their documentary. On the Poacher's boat, Danny, Mateo, and Cerrone search for the wreckage. As they were searching, a photograph in an old newspaper reveals that Mateo, Cerrone, and the poacher were working together to hunt animals, including snakes. However, Cerrone hides it before anyone else could see it. Upon searching, Cerrone discovers a box with the poacher's belongings and he takes it back to their ships with Danny. But in that hurry, they leave Mateo behind, who later falls into the water and the giant male warrior anaconda attacks and kills him. Unaware of what happened to Mateo, the crew waits at the boat for his return. But Cerrone, who knows what might have happened to Mateo, shares it with the other crew. Terry, who is in charge, instructs that they wait for the night there so that Mateo can return back, if he is still alive. Everyone agrees to it. Cerrone, on the other hand, does not find it useful, but he doesn't have a crew or boat of his own, so he is forced to follow Terry's orders. Cerrone then shows everyone the snake skin that he took from the Poacher's boat. Danny does not believe it because the snake's skin was much larger than he expected. Cerrone, however, warns him that the skin was gathered 4 years ago, and the snake has since gotten much larger. That night, after everyone goes to sleep, Gary decides to have a chat with Cerrone. Cerrone reveals to him what an alive anaconda is worth in the black market. Hearing that number, Gary decides to join Cerrone in his hunting and help him. The remaining crew is not happy with Gary's decision. But that doesn't change anything with Gary, because he has already made up his mind. Cerrone and Gary prepare the bait and wait for the arrival of the anaconda. As they expected, the snake takes the bait. But Cerrone and Gary struggle in capturing it, and in that struggle, the snake coils around Gary and crushes him. Terry attempts to shoot the anaconda to save him, but Cerrone knocks her gun away as he needs to capture the snake alive. Cerrone even tries a tranquilizer gun, but nothing works, and as a result of that, the snake devours Gary, leaving Denise heartbroken in tears. With Gary gone, Cerrone needs a new partner. Hence, he approaches Westridge for assistance. But Westridge does not fall for him. Understanding that Cerrone threatens him with the gun and makes Westridge work for him. The crew has come to the full realization that they must exert some sort of control over Cerrone if they don't want to be used by him. So, they devise a seduction strategy. Cerrone developed feelings for Terry as soon as he got on their boat. Terry is aware of that, and to his detriment, the crew decides to use it. So, later that evening, Terry goes to the boat cabin and seduces Cerrone, giving Danny a chance to kick Cerrone in the behind. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because Cerrone spots Danny in a mirror. However, Cerrone does not see Westridge approaching from the opposite direction. So, with Westridge's assistance, the crew knocks Cerrone out and ties him up with a rope. The next day, the boat becomes stuck at a waterfall, requiring Terry, Danny, and Westridge to enter the water to winch it loose. While they go into the water, Danny confronts Cerrone with a knife to kill him to avenge Gary's death. But Cerrone sees that as an opportunity to escape from the tie. Hence, he strangles Danny with his leg and dumps her corpse into the river. Cerrone then takes the knife Danny was carrying and cuts himself loose. But the movements they cause in the water drive the anaconda towards them. Danny and Terry swim back to the boat, while Westridge distracts it long enough for Terry and Danny to return safely to the boat. After making sure Terry and Danny are secure, Westridge climbs a waterfall to save himself. However, the snake attacks Westridge and kills him by climbing up a tree next to the waterfall. The tree on which the snake climbs could bear the weight, and hence it falls on their boat and the crew winds up in the river. After killing Westridge, the snake comes for the remaining crew members. Before Danny swims back to the broken boat, the snake gets to him and coils him around. Terry takes Cerrone's gun and shoots the snake in the head and saves Danny. But now that Cerrone is free, he sneaks up on Terry and Danny and attacks them. Cale, who was unconscious all this time, wakes up at that moment and uses the tranquilizer gun on Cerrone, making him unconscious, and he falls into the water. Then Terry and Danny return Cale to bed and carry on with their journey. On their way, they cross past a wooden building, where everything is old and dusty. They discover some guns and bullets scattered throughout the area. Terry and Danny enter the structure in the hopes of finding some fuel for their boat. As they were searing through the drums, Cerrone sneaks from behind and knocks them both unconscious. Terry has killed the anaconda Cerrone and has been tracing for a long time. But now, he is after something bigger, a much larger female queen anaconda. Cerrone ties them both and uses them as bait to capture the snake. Additionally, he pours some blood over their bodies to draw the snake closer to them more quickly. The plan succeeds, and the snake notices them and moves in their direction. Cerrone pulls the net as the snake approaches the bait and tries to contain it inside the net so that he can shoot it with a tranquilizer gun. However, the snake breaks free from the net and attacks Cerrone before he can fire the gun. Cerrone tries to escape the snake, but it pursues him through the structure, kills him, and then swallows him whole. In the meantime, Terry and Danny manage to untie themselves and attempt to flee the snake. But the anaconda slams Danny with its tail and chases Terry into a building where she finds a nest full of newborn anacondas. In front of Terry, the snake slithers through a door and regurgitates the still alive but partially digested Cerrone. Cerrone smiles at Terry for one last time before dropping to the ground completely dead. Terrified, Terry runs into a smoke shack while the snake keeps on chasing her. At the downstairs, Danny manages to find the tail of the snake, pins it to the ground with a pickaxe, and lit it on fire after pouring the fuel on the snake. The resulting explosion sends the burning anaconda flying out of the building and into the water. Terry, who jumped into the water before the explosion from the smoke shack, reunites with Danny on a nearby dock, believing that they have killed the snake. But to their surprise, before they board the boat, Terry is attacked again by the anaconda that emerges from the dock space. But this time, Danny uses an axe and kills it with a blow to the head. Afterward, Terry and Danny reunite with Cale, who had no idea what had happened there for the last few hours. But Terry and Danny explain everything to Cale, and the three of them continue their journey. While floating downriver, the trio suddenly locates the long-lost Shirashama tribe. Danny takes his camera and shoots the documentary film they came for.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more movie recaps.